This is Ben Proco. I'm going to go over the Oilman 2023 race with a little bit more specific focus on the bike course, but I'm going to cover a little bit of everything here as we go along. Swim course, someone said this morning, this is Saturday as I'm recording this, that the water temp was about 66 degrees. Definitely on the cooler side, but not bad. I swam in 63. I've swam down to 53, which is really cold. But 63 is kind of where my point is like, hey, that's kind of cold as you're in there longer. And, 66, 67 might even warm up just a tad with it not being quite as cool and also getting a little bit warmer generally today. So I think it's just going to be a great swim. It's usually a rolling start. I personally like wave starts, but rolling starts are great, especially for first-time racers, as it allows you just kind of get in, just pace your race, and not worry about like the just overall excitement of like starting with 150 people at the same time. Just a couple key things on this swim course. Right here, you'll have this right turn. There'll be some like you can almost swim underneath some pine trees. You'll get a little bit closer to the shore. You might want to stay a little bit out to the side. Sometimes those limbs are kind of hanging off into the water. Um, this this is pretty close here, but there's usually buoys going right down the line here, so really easy to see to stay to the inside here. This is probably one of the biggest points right here. Right as you kind of get around these trees, you're going to be looking straight into the sun. If there's not cloud cover, it can be difficult to see these, especially down here to these turn buoys. So just keep that in mind when you make that right turn. Kind of look at what the weather's looking like that morning right as you start the swim. And you'll be able to see if you're going to have to look into the sun. For me, once I get here, I have to sight a little bit more just because I am looking in the sun. I usually can't see quite as far to where maybe that turn buoy is. But I always like it. Once I've made these first two turns, even though you're just a little bit over halfway done with a swim, it just feels like it's kind of all downhill here. For some reason, I don't know why it is, and it even shows up on the GPS. I kind of migrate to the right a little bit. So just something I'll probably try to think of. Sometimes there's a little bit, you get some packs of people here, and that's probably why I move a little bit to the right. But just something to think about as you go in. And then kind of when I get into where this little arrow is right here, I start looking where other swimmers are, just because there's a few ladders to get out. It just happens where I usually start the race. There's quite a few people coming in, so if I see there's a whole bunch in front of me, I might just take it easy because they're gonna have to climb out on these ladders anyways, and no sense in waiting in line type thing. But if I'm with like a group of people and maybe I'm towards the front of that group, I'll probably just pick it up a little bit just so I can get to that ladder and kind of get out of the way. But again, great swim course. Always fun to have this one. Just the big thing to watch out for is the sun on that. Here's where I'm going to put most of my focus is on the bike course as far as talking you through it. This whole way, kind of heading out, while we'll have some like downhills, is generally trending uphill. And in fact, it's trending uphill all along here. And I say trending because you are literally going to have 50 or more small hills. And this is where, and this was me personally, when I first started racing, I didn't have a power meter. All I had was heart rate. And the problem with heart rate on this course is, and you can see these, this is speed. This is a race plan that I kind of use from Best Bike Split, where it minimize your power, and then here are the like little elevation ticks in blue, and you just see how many times you go up and down, and you really have to watch out. So like if my goal power were 175 watts, an inexperienced rider might be going up at 250 at the beginning of the hill for maybe just like 10 seconds, which they may be above their threshold even. And they're only doing that for 10 seconds at a time at the beginning of each hill, and then they might back down a little bit. But the problem with that is when you do that 50 times over, that's like throwing 50 little mini sprints for every hill. And anyone knows pacing. It's not the best idea to just throw random sprints in there, but yet that's what a lot of people will do, not realizing it, because you got your creatine phosphate stores, which are your just really forceful contraction ability. will kick in while you're starting that hill. And I say it won't feel hard, but when you add that to 50 or 60 times in a race, you'll be around mile 40, and you'll just be like, man, why am I so tired all of a sudden? I've paced these rides before, but you may have been training mostly on flat roads, or maybe didn't get to come out into the course and see that. And I've got to race this course every way, with heart rate, with nothing, and then with power. And once I got power, it was really like cheating. So if you don't have power, that's okay. Just really gear it back some as you go. I tell people you can sometimes, when you're starting to go up the hill, feel the pressure on your feet in your cycling shoes. Like if you can feel that pressure going up, that's more power that you're putting into the pedals, which I say that'd be a power spike, and that's not what you really want to have. You want to, for perfect pacing, you want to add just a little bit of power, but you're talking about only, maybe around 10% on some of the steeper sections. So I say I'm really focusing on that. I have a video that talks about climbing. I'll put it in the description of this particular video. But if you want to see a little bit more detail in climbing and how to pace the hills and whatnot, definitely check that out. But again, just make sure you're not pushing too hard, especially at the beginning of the hills. And I'll tell you, I'm usually a pretty good climber, but usually these first 20 miles, like of this particular race or any race that has like rolling hills, I'll have people passing me at the beginning of the hills, like constantly. And it's usually because they're just going up too hard at the beginning of the hill. Most of the time I catch them just as we come up to the crest of the hill, and then as we start to go over the top, because most people's tendency is they get to the top of the hill, they kind of start celebrating, and mental celebration, and made it up to the top of a hill, and then they back completely off the gas at the start of the downhill. And you want to, as you crest a hill, you want to kind of stay on the gas, kind of use the same effort that should have been a good effort going up the hill, and make sure you kind of get yourself up to speed, get yourself up to 20, 22, 24, 26 miles an hour, and then you can start backing down to power, and then even sometimes start coasting. You can see some of these speeds here reaching, it doesn't say I'm going to get much past 30 miles an hour. I think I might actually, you might get up to around 30 miles an hour. But if you're up to that, then again, you can kind of back off the power. But again, just be smart on these hills. And here's that trending uphill, this blue line. You are gradually trending uphill. Right here, it kind of looks like there's a big climb. Again, it's hard to really just see on this course. It's kind of, you just have this gradual uphill. And then right along here around 25 to 30, you have this long, what looks like flat, but it is kind of a false flat. And I'll hit a little bit more on that section. But again, the biggest thing, just don't go too hard at the beginning of these hills. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see on this course, and that's why it's a deceivingly tough course. Because while the overall elevation doesn't really look too aggressive, it's that you'll pace these first 20, 30, 40 miles way too hard as far as just going too hard up the hills. Here's the wind. Very, very favorable wind. It looks like we have our, typical southeast wind here, starting off pretty low early on. This is with an assumed 8 o'clock bike start time. And then kicking up a little bit more. Again, this is not, it's not a very windy day, but I'm going to show you some spots on the course here where that's going to affect you. So that wind is pointing out this way. It's going to help blow you out a little bit. The thing is, you're going through the forest here. I doubt you're even going to feel any bit of wind, because this is pretty lots of heavy pine trees through here. Right here is that false flat, right along here. And it just, like, from this point on, it just continually goes up. And it's weird. It's like, I say it's a false flat. It looks like it's flat. And you're going to probably wonder, like, hey, do I have a flat tire? Why am I only going, 15 miles an hour right here? It looks like it's flat, if you usually average 20 or something like that. And it's just that it's going up this small grade, like 1, maybe 2%, all the way through here. Have a couple little down dips, and then you finally get some water here and get to trend down. Here's the thing. When you make this turn, it said the wind's going to be around 4, maybe 5 miles an hour. I can almost promise you it's going to feel like 10 right here. It's super open, kind of the top of that false flat. It's going to be really windy around here, so make sure you've saved some of your I call it arrow energy, because sometimes staying in the arrow position for 56 miles is difficult. Save some of that arrow energy, especially for your trip back. It's going to be really windy right here, or windier than what that like 4 or 5 miles per hour that's forecast seems. And then same thing along here. You'll make this turn and it'll feel pretty windy along here. Dacus Johnson, this road right here, used to be terrible. It used to have potholes everywhere. I loved it when they resurfaced this, but this is along like, again, false flat. This course is lots of rollers and then these false flats, and that pretty much sums up this course. And if you paced yourself well, you should be feeling good coming along in here. And once you get around this area here, it's just mostly downhill. Just start getting your legs ready to make that run. But most people, I say their mistakes on this course are in the first 10 to 20 miles. They just push too hard. They're excited. The race started, and you just got all these rollers through the beautiful national forest. And then when you kind of all of a sudden get along here, again, you see I said this is a windy area usually, and or at least windier and kind of what the forecast will say. It seems like every time I ride out here, you'll see people sitting up along here when they should really be focusing, staying in the arrow position. Let me see what other notes I have. Lots of small hills. Be careful with your heart rate, or RP, rate of perceived exertion. This course can get you in trouble really quick if you're just, I say you're making that climb. Let's say you're targeting a heart rate of 130. You're making your climb going uphill, and you're like, oh, I only got up to 135. Well, again, it takes 3 to 10 minutes for heart rate to react to any sort of increase in power. So these hills aren't really long enough to show where, had you been riding at that pace, for 10 minutes, your heart rate might have went up to, if you're shooting for 130 and you only got up to 135, had you continued that effort, you might have got up to 150, 155 or something like that. So again, just be really smart. It really pays dividends towards the end of the bike and then even on the run leg. Talked a little bit about the wind. And if you're a newer racer, and I say you're kind of your first half, or maybe you've done a half before, but it didn't go quite as planned. I tell people to treat mile 40 like the halfway point, not 28. Wait till that point to kind of just hold back. If you have a really good power plan, done some metabolic testing, blood lactate testing, things like that, you can kind of be a little bit more aggressive with what you're going to do, and you're running with a power meter, because you can kind of see where everything falls. That's something we offer here with TriFit XT. We do some of that testing, like at least 100 athletes a year, and that kind of stuff to help dial in their race plan. But again, if you're new and don't have some of that data, always better to err on the side of keeping things on the easy side. Here's the run course. I won't be doing the run course this year, but I'll get to watch everyone out there. So you got the run start, and this kind of everything that heads towards Walden Road is going to be trending uphill. So you'll kind of have this uphill going anytime this direction, slightly downhill, and these are just like slight variants. They're not punchy hills or anything. They're just gradual uphills and downhills. And as you kind of hit the back nine here, and even some of the spots over here, any of these kind of loops, this is a golf course cart path you're on a lot of times. Can be a little bit off camber. I tell people just make sure you're keeping your run cadence up. I think that helps, as opposed to like really pounding on your legs. It can hurt a little bit with the off camber stuff, but just look for spots that are flatter, and you should be fine. And again, I'm not going to go into this too much. Just when you get off the bike, just remember, especially since you were trending downhill those last 2, 3, 4 miles or whatever it was at the end, you're going to be seeing things passing by a lot faster, 20, 22, 24 miles an hour. And you've been seeing that for 2 or 3 hours. Watch out just when you start the run, your eyes, just like when you come off the freeway, want to keep seeing that 20 miles an hour. And you get off on the beginning of the run and you're running a 6-minute mile, 10 miles per hour. And that to your eyes still even seems slow. So just make sure, really take tabs of where you are and just don't start off too fast. I can't tell you how many people start off on that first half mile or mile that's like their sprint try pace, just because that's what their eyes have been seeing for such a long time. So just make sure you don't take off too fast on the start of the run. And again, for newer racers, if this is your first race, or maybe again, that first race or second race didn't go to plan, I treat, so you kind of have 2 laps, and in each one of those laps you have a front 9 of the course loop and a back 9. I would treat the first lap and the front 9 almost as your halfway point. So when you go by transition here, if you want, I would stay conservative, pass by and you're on this back 9. That's where I would really hold back until that point. You got about 3 miles left at that point before you come to the finish. So that's where you want to let loose, around roughly after 10 miles. Again, if you've paced these for a while and you've done this, just do your thing. This kind of geared towards the newer racers who I say might be their first time. Hold back until around mile 10, which would be your second lap on this back 9 loop, and that should help you out. All right. Again, just talking about the course, we hit all that stuff right there. All right, so again, I'm Ben Proco with TriFit XT. We do coaching, metabolic testing, blood lactate testing. We also put on a couple races. We have one that's coming up in February, an off-road race, easy off-road, non-technical trails, but lots of fun, and usually some great weather is towards the end of February. Really, we start kind of just getting that slight warming trend, and we've had very fortunate to have some great weather every time. And like I said at the bottom in the description, I'll put some of my other video. If you're kind of just sitting around today looking to pick up some tips before the race, you could look at that as well. But again, good luck to everyone racing tomorrow. Hopefully this is helpful. If you have anyone who's doing a similar course with the rolling hills, feel free to share this with them to help them out. All right, good luck everyone.